If Batman Bruce Wayne is going to show up in the Penguin, now is the time. Spoilers will lie ahead for the Penguin episode 7, Top Hat. The penultimate episode of the Penguin saw the final days of calm before the storm. And now the Penguin and his forces are rearing themselves for an all-out war against Sophia. Sal Maroni is dead, Sophia is hellbent on revenge, and the Penguin has an empire to cement in the very foundations of Gotham. In the last episode, we saw that Sophia attempted to ambush Oz with a car bomb, which was delivered into the catacombs beneath Gotham City where Oz was running his Operation of Bliss. When the bomb detonated, it ripped apart the foundations holding up an entire city block and sent the surrounding area plummeting into a crater. Right now, we don't have an official death toll, but we do know that this is a significant newsworthy event. Recently, we released a video on where Batman has been this whole time during the Penguin, and why he hasn't interfered with the Penguin's operations until now, or hopefully until now. And that video was broken down into two general halves and thoughts. First was the dual identity of Bruce Wayne and the Batman, and how we hope that Bruce Wayne is taking some time to invest in his social and political power as a billionaire. But we don't get too deeply into that here. The second half of the theory, though, is what is important. Part of what makes the Penguin so brilliant as a criminal is that he knows how not to draw attention to himself. He's always flown under the radar and kept his operations relatively small, watching, lurking, and learning. Oz only skims what he knows and what he can get away with. He keeps to himself and knows how to stay hidden while letting someone like Carmine be the public face of any operation. Now, however, this half of the argument is no longer valid, as this war with Sophia has leveled an entire city block of Gotham. So what does this mean for the finale? And more importantly, how does this event likely catch the eye of the Batman? If Batman does not investigate the site of the explosion, then there will have to be a very good explanation for why, and why he decided to look at something more important. When he almost inevitably does investigate though, it shouldn't take him too long to figure out who is behind it. Different cinematic interpretations of Batman take different approaches, especially when it comes into his detective skills, with some depictions leaning more heavily into his detective side than others do. This universe, however, has gone out of its way to highlight exactly how intelligent Batman is when it comes to investigating crimes, so let's take into account the evidence that he would have to work with. He would not only have the mushrooms that have been producing bliss, but also now the wreckage of the equipment that they've been using, as well as the bodies of several henchmen. There is more than enough here to at least make Bruce suspicious of Oz, especially since the Falcone family has been undergoing renovations since the death of Carmine. The rest of the Falcones are dead, Sophia has risen to power, changed her name, and yet, Batman has not directly interfered. He may be stretched thin here, or have other priorities at the moment, but that doesn't mean that he's not informed. So now the explosion likely would have caught the attention of Batman, which means that in the finale of the Penguin, if it doesn't take place within the same time span of a day or so, then it's very likely that Batman should catch up to this. If this is true, then the likelihood of Oz and Sophia having their final showdown dips significantly. But this would also drastically raise the stakes for the finale. Oz wants to get his mother back, and Sophia wants to make sure that Oz suffers as much as she can manage. But this may put a much more tense ticking clock on the finale. Batman is a menace to the criminals like this, and he will stop at nothing to dismantle this entire conflict once he catches wind of it. But he still needs time to work his way up the ladder. He has to learn about what exactly is going on, figure out that Francis is in trouble, and more importantly, find where each of the two of them are hiding. And even though Batman is good, they may have some time. Let's take the following as an example of how the finale could build up a much more tense showdown by using Batman as a backdrop. And although this is of course hypothetical and the details may vary, this helps us paint a much clearer picture of exactly how Batman's involvement raises the stakes. The beginning of the finale may allude to Batman abducting and interrogating one of Oz's men, where Oz now learns that if he doesn't rescue his mother immediately, that now Batman is back on his tail. And this time, losing to Batman could mean certain death to his mother. If Oz gets caught, then Sophia will not hesitate to end his mother's life and go underground until everything settles. Likewise, if Sophia knows that Batman is looking for her, then she may think twice about milking her revenge. The last thing she would want is to be put back in Arkham. Batman's appearance could put the two of them into a panic, and this could all be done with giving Batman a relatively minor role and just be happening in the background. One core facet of this version of Batman is how he has created a symbol of fear across Gotham, and that fear keeps criminals in check without him ever physically having to be there. This is also a major criticism of the Penguin so far. The fact that none of the criminals seem to even mention Batman or be afraid of him whatsoever. The very idea of encountering the Batman is enough to make most violent criminals think twice. And at the end of the Batman, we see that he's trying to rehabilitate this image, but that he is still a symbol of fear. He is not completely unraveled from this mindset that the people of Gotham should view him as a threat. And more importantly, when he talks about being a symbol of hope, he's not talking about being a symbol of hope to people like Oz. He wants the regular person to be hopeful that Batman is watching out for them, but he still very much wants to strike fear into the hearts of criminals. He needs to rein it in, but he still absolutely wants people like Oz to be terrified that he could arrive. So far, we haven't seen any firm evidence that anyone in the world of Penguin is particularly worried about the Batman showing up, despite that being a defining aspect of this universe. If this changes, however, and if all parties are feeling this fear, then it would mean that Oz or Sophia could be acting even more irrationally than they already are, as they both try to end the conflict as quickly as possible, because now Batman is in play. Just showing the aftermath of Batman beating down a few select henchmen in order to instill a timeline on the finale could drastically increase the tension and lead us neatly into the Batman Part 2. We know that the events of the first Batman film begin on Halloween night, and that the murder of Alberto Falcone took place on November 13th. And we now know that the Penguin has led directly into the beginning of winter, where the Batman Part 2 is rumored to take place. And while we don't have a specific time frame, we can reasonably conclude that it's probably this exact same winter. The war between Oz and Sophia seems like it's going to be a recent event when the Batman 2 begins, so not involving him may prove to be a misstep. It would also help to tie the universe together in a way that helps us understand that Gotham in its entirety is much larger than any individual story. We've mentioned before how we don't see Gotham as a city, but as a living, breathing entity. An organism that should be treated as a character rather than a setting. And in order to paint Gotham as much bigger than a playground for these stories to take place in, connections like this need to happen. This is all to say that we are hopeful that we can at least hear a reference to Batman, even if we don't see him in his entirety in the finale for the Penguin. A line that he is investigating the car bomb, simply a shadow flying overhead in the night, is all we need to make this version of Batman fulfill everything that he's built up to. He may have reasons for staying away, and until now, Oz's operation may have been small enough for Batman to have more important matters at play. After the explosion, however, this conflict is now too big for Batman to ignore, and if he wants his mission to mean anything, then Batman must respond. He is meant to inspire fear, and so far, no one in the Penguin seems to be afraid of him, or even mention him, and there is one episode left for this to change. But my friends, what do you think of the likelihood that Batman will appear, or at least be referenced in the finale for the Penguin? What do you want to see in the finale, and what do you think of the series overall? As always, my friends, stay tuned for more DC and Marvel lore, and have a great day.